Hey everyone, Karnak here of Star Wars Armada Explained. Today we're going to look at the objective Minefields. Minefields is, an objective that some people definitely have some questions on about how does the attack work, what's some of the timing like. Let's dive right in. Minefields, the setup is really simple. The second player places all obstacles. So if you're second player and you really want to be second player, this is great for you. You get to place all the obstacles wherever you want on the map. Maybe you brought an interdictor. You can place those wherever, and then that's great for second player. Let's continue reading the setup though. The second player, he can place them anywhere. I like how it says he. It should be he or she or they. How dare they assume the gender? Anyway, he can place them anywhere in the setup area, even in deployment zones, and must place them beyond distance 5 of each other. Then he places 6 objective tokens. Each objective token must be placed at distance 1 of an obstacle and beyond distance 1 of all other objective tokens. So let's go ahead and move these cards out of the way. I'll get into those. So what's the first stipulation is, again, second player places all the obstacles. What's the second check? They all need to be beyond distance 5 of each other. So we can see here, and you can put them in deployment zones. Typically obstacles you cannot place into the deployment zones where the ships go. You can place them in the setup area here. But this objective gives you the ability to put them wherever you want as long as they're beyond distance 5 of each other. So that's all good. That's good there. That guy's fine. Do that one there. And there we go. These are all beyond distance 5 of each other. If we bring up all their range bands here, we can see that none of them are touching each other. They're all out of range. Obviously, however you want to place your objective tokens, have a strategy, or the obstacle tokens, excuse me, have a strategy for them. Don't necessarily just throw them out willy-nilly like I have. But if you've got something like an interdictor, the experimental retrofit, you can always move those around afterwards. Otherwise, then after you're done placing all of the obstacles, the second player then places all 6 objective tokens that he has. These can be placed at distance 1 of all of an obstacle, as long as they are also beyond distance 1 of all of their objective tokens. So remember, for the objective, or for the distance range bands, remember range 1 is a black circle, 2 is the red, 3 is orange, 4 is peach, and this yellow is distance 5. So we need to be at distance 1. Now remember, at is just barely touching any part of an obstacle. That is at. If it was within, it would need to be completely within the black. We don't need to do that. So we can be at distance 1 here. Now the next token that we place down, if we wanted to use the same obstacle, which we can, we just have to make sure that we are not at distance 1 of another token. So we could do something like this even. That's, those two are both at distance 1 of the obstacle, but not at distance 1 of each other. And we'll just go ahead and throw some tokens. They don't have to be, out here. You could have them, on the obstacle. Again, as long as you're fulfilling the requirements of everything, you can pretty much put them wherever you want, as long as it's at distance 1 of an obstacle and not at distance 1 of another objective token. Boom. So we've got all 6 placed down there. Alright, so what's their special rule? What do these objective tokens do? Beyond distance 1 of all other objective tokens, not at. So you need to be at distance 1 of an obstacle, beyond distance 1 of all other objective tokens. Sorry, messed that up. But essentially, you can see here all these tokens are beyond distance 1. Okay. So what's the rule? What do these things do? So if a ship ends its movement at distance 1, there's that again, you need to be at distance 1 of an objective token. Remove that objective token from the play area and roll 2 blue die. That ship is dealt 1 face down damage card for each hit or critical icon rolled. If there is at least 1 critical icon, deal the first damage card face up. So one thing to remember about Minefield is that this takes place when a ship ends its movement, not when it starts near or at, because you can see here, if you can place obstacles within that your enemy's deployment zone, you can throw minefields into there. it's not fair that he has to play ships down and then immediately explode and he takes damage. It only occurs at the end of a ship's movement. Okay, not at the beginning, not in the middle. It's when the ship is done moving. He's placed the movement tool, moved his ship, and he's done moving. It says, okay, that's where it's ending up. That's when then the timing goes off, and then you check if it's at. So let's just give this an example right here. So if, for example, if this GR75 was to just go ahead at speed 2, 1 and 2, remove the tool, you can see here he is at distance 1. He has some part of this objective token touching that ship. And again, remember with at, it doesn't have to be just the cardboard. It can be even just barely nicking the plastic on that, like for example, pretty much right there, pretty close. A little bit closer. There we go. It can even just be nicking the small plastic piece of a ship. Because again, this isn't an attack. It's only when you're making an attack do you range from cardboard to cardboard with a ship, or if it's a squadron, from the closest point of the base to the closest point of the base of the squadron it's trying to attack to. Again, when making these distance calls that aren't attacks, it is literally to the closest point of the ship. Now, you do not count the shield dials on the ship itself. The rules specifically state you don't count the shield dials for that. So we are at distance 1 of this GR75. The enemy player is like, okay, or the second player who has this objective says, okay, I'm going to roll my 2 blue die. He rolls 2. In this case, he got an accuracy and a hit. Unfortunately, accuracies absolutely do nothing for minefields. So the GR75 would take immediate 1 damage. Now you might be saying, but wait, the GR75 has scatter. He can just scatter that damage. Or, in this case, even though if you roll the accuracy, well no. The GR75 cannot scatter this damage. You, in fact, cannot use any defensive tokens to negate Minefield's effects. Why is that? Look at the wording on the card. It specifically does not state that it's an attack, meaning it doesn't have an attack step, meaning that there's no defense token step spending. It is just literally when a ship ends its movement there, you remove that objective token, you roll the 2 blue die. The card specifically tells you, okay, this is what's going to happen. Either you're going to take 0 to 2 face down damage cards, or if there's a critical icon showing, you're taking the first damage card you're dealt face up, and that's it. Okay, you can't scatter it, you can't brace it, you can't do anything to stop this. Even cards like, for example, where my cards go, the main 3, we're not going to look at these 2 just yet. We're going to talk about the main 3 here, like Admonition, Major Durland, Captain Brenson. Okay, they all specifically say while defending or before you suffer damage from an attack, specifically in their wording, meaning that you need to have a full attack step, you need to have a spend defense token step, etc. So no, these 3 cards absolutely do not work against minefields, because again, minefields is not an attack. You're not going through an attack phase. There is an interesting caveat though to minefields, and that is resolving around the medical team and the new card coming in the SSD, Lyra Wessex. So minefields, as it mentions here, if you roll the 1 critical and deal first damage face up, medical team, it doesn't care about any of that. It just says before your Delta face up damage card with the crew trait, you may discard this card to discard that damage card. It doesn't care if there is an attack or not, because again, if you run over like an asteroid field, or maybe you got ran by Grail's Honor, as long as when you are revealing that damage card, if it has the crew trait, you immediately can discard medical team and that face-up damage card without resolving that face-up damage card's effects. Okay, medical team can be used again with the minefield attack, or again asteroids or face-up damage card rams. What about Lyra Wessex? So I know that I haven't reviewed her or don't plan to review until the SSD comes out, but pretty much her ability is if you are dealt a face-up damage card, you can spend 1 repair token to flip that card face down without resolving its effects. Okay, she can turn this face-up damage card face down because, again, it doesn't specify in a defense or an attack. It just simply says when you're dealt a face-up damage card. So yes, she can turn the minefield face up, face down, just like she can with asteroid fields or any other attempt that, if you get a face up card, as long as you've got the repair tokens that you can do that with. Okay. So let's go into some more, a few other nuances with minefields. So minefields does have one clarification. I should have read this at the beginning, but it kind of plays into now. So minefields, this card's special rule effect resolves during the move ship step while executing a maneuver. What does that mean? So a ship, when you're moving it with your movement tool, there actually are multiple steps within that one step. You're not just simply moving the ship from A to B and then you're done. This is the determine course step, and then when you've locked in and you've moved your ship, at the end of your movement, that is your move ship movement. Before you remove your maneuver tool, this is currently while doing that maneuver, you've not yet executed the maneuver. Okay, why is that difference? Or timing in that is different because of slicer tools. So slicer tools is after you execute a maneuver. So if your ship, so let's just walk through this then. So if this ship had slicer tools, for example, which can only be done after you execute a movement, so you would first you're determining your course step, which is what we're doing, and you're saying, okay, this is the determined course step I'm going to take. I'm going to move at speed 3, 1, 2, 3. So you lock in that tool, and you go 1, 2, 3. Now you've completed your movement, but the maneuver has not yet been quote unquote executed. So essentially, right as you've placed your ship where he is going, that is then the trigger for minefields. Minefields triggers before slicer tools, because this is immediately right after your ship has now moved. It's not yet completely executed the maneuver. I mean, you still, remove the movement tool just to get out of the way, but as soon as it's done moving, that's when minefield goes off. It's before you execute slicer tools, or in the case of, where's another instance where this is going to be a thing that that they actually had to make a clarification for. Oh gosh, I thought it was just right there, but I'm wrong. It's for Demolisher. Here we go. In the Minefields objective, if Demolisher is within range of a mine token after it executes a maneuver, it suffers the effect of that mine before it can perform its delayed attack. The attack is affected by any face-up damage cards dealt, and Demolisher cannot attack if it is destroyed. You see down here I've got Demolisher. So Demolisher, which allows you to shoot once after moving, if you wanted to try to come and move up and shoot this flotilla, which by the way, the minefields guys, they don't like anybody. They hate everybody. They will explode on friend and foe. Doesn't matter if you place them or not. So if he moves up before he can shoot another ship, minefields effect takes place. Again, because Demolisher is after you execute your first maneuver. Again, you're not in the process of fully completing the execution of that maneuver until minefield goes off. Now let's get into the caveat of what happens if you ram and you land on an obstacle and you are in range of minefield. This is something that throws people all the time, and almost always they get the order wrong. So I'm going to walk through it just so you guys can see how this works out. So let's say, see here, we're going to use the debris field as an example. So let's say here we've got a mine in the middle of this debris field, and we've got a flotilla right up here. Don't mind the rest of this stuff. And this gladiator wants to ram that flotilla. For whatever reason, he wants to ram it. So what is the timing for all of this? And we'll say that he's gonna do something like this for whatever reason. It's not very smart. I'm not saying this guy driving this thing is very smart, but he's gonna execute a speed 2 maneuver. He's going to ram that flotilla, and then he's going to drop back to the next available spacing that he has. What is now the timing for all of this? Well, the ram damage actually happens first. The ram damage takes place immediately when it happens, quote unquote, before the ship then drops back into its completed placement. So the first thing that happens is you take the, in this case, a gladiator won't take a face down damage from a flotilla. But if you're ramming any other kind of ship, for example, and I just am using this for the example, so we'll say that's a different small ship like a corvette or something. He rams that ship. The first thing that happens is he takes that ram damage. Then he drops back onto the debris field. What happens next? The mine happens next. The minefield damage then happens because, again, it's during that whole completing the maneuver. His maneuver's been completed. You roll the 2 die. In this case, he takes 2 more face down damage. Then the trigger from debris field or any other obstacle, it doesn't matter if it was the debris field, doesn't matter if it's the rock, doesn't matter if it's the station. That is then when the trigger for those happen, is because that's after you've executed a maneuver is when those effects trigger. So in this case, the gladiator would need to then take 2 damage to any one hull zone. And in this case, if he didn't have any shields left, he would take 2 face down damage cards, and then he would blow up if he didn't have any shields. Or you chose a whole zone that didn't have any shields in it, which I don't know why you would do that. But, that is the effect and timing for all of this. Okay? Now there's one more thing I want to touch on about these objective tokens. As we know, there's some squadrons in the game that can move these tokens around. And of course, that is the let's get them spawned out on here so we can see. I should have these ready already, but that is the VCX and that is the Lambda squadrons, because they have the strategic ability on them, which is if they are within or if they are at distance 1 of objective token, they can move that objective token to at distance 1 anywhere they want around that squadron. Some people have erroneously thought that if they move the VCX and grab this token and chuck it at a ship, that somehow it's going to just magically explode when it gets near it. No, again, remember, it's only when a ship ends its movement does the mine explode. Now, you definitely can move these mines towards the path of where these ships are probably going to go. That's fine, but again, they only trigger when a ship ends its movement. Let's also talk about, can a ship throw the objective tokens off the table? We do not have a quote-unquote official ruling other than the precedence what we have in Capture the VIP, which states if the objective token flies off the table, you place the objective token at the edge of the table. So that is the precedence we have about objective tokens, is that no, they cannot be thrown off the table. This is backed up by one of the judges had asked a developer at FFG. He said when he was asked this question, can you throw objective tokens off the table? His response is, that's ridiculous. Is that an official answer? No. By all means, any TO can make any ruling that they want, of course. And I'm sure there are some TOs that will say, yeah, you can chuck those off the table, no problem. But according to the precedents that we have, and again, by that comment, if I was a tournament organizer, I would say you absolutely cannot throw objective tokens off the table. They have to stay on the table in some shape, way, form, or fashion. And that is Minefields in a nutshell. So, of course, if you feel, I say in a nutshell, not really a nutshell, but of course, if you feel like I got anything in error, if you feel like anything is wrong, please be sure to comment, let me know. I know that some of these steps got really intricate and in detail, so if you need help understanding them, just give me a comment. I'm more than happy to continue to walk through that process, but I think a lot of you can kind of see the steps that get taken. Of course, anything else I can do for you guys, you just give a shout out to me. I appreciate everything you guys do in the comments. Like with always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.